So, before I really get into the meat of this theory, I do want to clarify what this video is not going to be. This is not going to be like the puppet stuff video where I am consistently trying to explain why I don't find other theories correct, or holes in other theories, or why this theory outpaces another theory specifically. It is just entirely centered around explaining Vengeful Cassidy and the evidence for it. So if you're wondering, what about Stitchline game? What about Andrew being the vengeful spirit? I'm not going to talk about that in this video. It kills the pacing, it would just fill out time, and frankly it ruins the tone of this video. I'm going to let that go to another video in the future, or maybe not even talk about it at all. If you're going to believe Stitchline games no matter what, there's nothing I can say anyway to stop you. So instead, I'm just going to try and explain this theory as best as I can. But I will say one thing about Stitchline games. There is a very false notion a lot of people use with that theory that there is no reason to believe Cassidy was the vengeful spirit up to UCN. And frankly, I heavily disagree, and this video really made me believe that there is definitely a possible world, or even a likely one, or just the world we live in, where Cassidy was always meant to be the vengeful spirit up to UCN, and we always had the clues to say so. And we could do so very clearly, potentially. And to focus on that, this entire video is going to be written solely from the perspective of FNaF 1 through 6, UCN, and the logbook. With FNaF World, obviously. No books, no short stories, no modern games, just the core games and the logbook. And to be honest, I'm kind of writing this video in a bit of a vacuum, so it's not going to be super intertwined with past things I've said or past theories or videos. So I'd like this video to be sort of a soft reset and re-perspective centered around this piece of the lore. Pretty much the main focus of this theory is the relationship between Cassidy and the bite victim. Obviously, the survival logbook establishes the fated text to be Cassidy. That is plain text, it says my name all over the book. We can also already start to see the pieces putting Cassidy with Golden Freddy. Cassidy is the name found in the logbook via this whole kind of hidden puzzle, with this seemingly being the name for the gravestone, Cassidy. Which, based on how this parallels back to the full FNaF 3 good ending, we can reasonably assume that as the odd gravestone out, it would be Golden Freddy. There's going to be more connections as we go on to why Cassidy would be Golden Freddy, but this is just one of the first things that implies it. And there's also the altered text. We know from Cassidy that the party was for you, which the altered text responds to with the party was for me. Cassidy asks whether or not the altered text can see, to which they respond they can't see. Keep that in mind. Cassidy also talks about psychic friend Fredbear, but neither Mike nor altered text respond to this question. However, the very fact that it's acknowledged at all means that one of the two entities Cassidy is talking to has to be the bite victim. Considering that William wouldn't be talking to himself as Psychic Friend Fredbear, it has to be something that Psychic Friend Fredbear was talking to, the only character we know of which is the bite victim, obviously. And between the alter text saying the party was for him and I'm scared, which is pretty much the motto of the bite victim, I think it's safe to say that that is the bite victim it's talking to. But the very fact that Cassidy knows who Psychic Friend Fredbear is interesting, because it means they know who the bite victim was, maybe not in life, maybe they weren't alive near him or family or anything like that, I'm not saying that. But it means Cassidy knows who the bite victim is somehow. They know who Psychic Friend Fredbear was to the bite victim, and they know the party's for him. And we also know that blatantly, on some level, William was the original Psychic Friend Fredbear. We also know that it's likely that Cassidy isn't Psychic Friend Fredbear, because Cassidy should be in the MCI, and the MCI is in 1985 to our knowledge. But also, they ask, does he still talk to you? Which would be a pointless question if Cassidy was Psychic Friend Fredbear. They would know that answer if they were him. Why ask it at all? At least if they were the original Psychic Friend Fredbear. William also instructs Mike to put Elizabeth back together, which I think just blatantly is Scott trying to hammer in that the original Psychic Friend Fredbear plush is William in FNaF 4. But I think Glitch Bear in FNaF World and the Spooky Eyes are Cassidy. There are many reasons to believe this. Spooky Eyes McGee knows the phrasing and wording used by Psychic Friend Fredbear. Cassidy is one of the only characters established to know what Psychic Friend Fredbear was to the bite victim. Does he still talk to you? But there's already something inherent between Glitch Fredbear being Fredbear at all that already connects back to Golden Freddy, and by process, Cassidy. Our guide through FNaF World, the one trying to get us to do our real purpose and made set goal, is Glitch Fredbear. Fredbear says that our purpose as the player is to put the pieces in place for him, to leave breadcrumbs for him to find his way. And as Adventure Freddy / the other adventure characters, We were created for that sole purpose. So this already establishes an interesting trait about Glitch Fredbear / Spooky Eyes. One way or another, one of those two is an entity capable of creating other smaller entities for specific goals. These aren't real active sentient souls or minds that aren't just creating life out of nothing. As it says, you don't understand that. Adventure Freddy / the player doesn't understand what they're doing, they just know they have to do it. I also gotta say that Glitch Fredbear might as well just be Spooky Eyes. Even if it's an entity created by Spooky Eyes, it's doing everything and saying everything on behalf of Spooky Eyes. So we're just gonna kind of treat them as one character, or at least one character shared via motive and ideals. Their collective goal is to put the pieces in place for him. Once this has been achieved, we're brought back to the void where FNaF World started.
We are still your friends. The pieces are in place for you. All you have to do is find them.
This reaffirms they are talking about the bite victim. I will put you back together already kind of links back to the end of FNaF 4, but in case that wasn't on the nose enough, also you have We Are Still Your Friends, another direct reference that is exclusive to Psychic Friend Fredbear talking to the bite victim. Remember, Cassidy knows about Psychic Friend Fredbear and the bite victim and their whole deal. And the void ties back even further to this. He can't see, he can only hear. While granted as the player of the actual game FNaF World, we are seeing text on a screen, think of it from the perspective of Spooky Eyes talking to it. He would hear that in this void. Cassidy at some point somehow learns what the party was for the bite victim and who Psychic Friend Fredbear is. They are the only spirit that actually acknowledges these events and character moments. They would know what to say and who to act like. This already makes Cassidy the most likely candidate for the glowy eye. While I'm sure it's tempting to say it would be Charlie, Charlie never gets this kind of spotlight or dialogue. There's no mention of her interacting with Psychic Friend Fredbear or anything like that beyond indirect theories. Cassidy directly acknowledges both the party and Psychic Friend Fredbear. And this all comes even more to a head in UCN. Golden Freddy is the character behind everything. Even on the lowest difficulty, they can't be Death Coin, and they have a special jump scare. Golden Freddy is a character who appears in the Black Void, and FNaF World is constantly intrinsically linked to UCN all the way through. Bouncebot, Tangle, White Rabbit all appear from FNaF World. A core mechanic is Dee Dee from FNaF World, with the new challenger text from FNaF World. Old Man Consequences is not only an enemy from FNaF World, but has a dedicated Easter egg that directly affects FNaF World as a game. But one of the things that struck me the most when looking at it all together under this logic is how simple the connection between Fredbear and UCN is to Glitch Fredbear. It's the same design and aesthetic, just in the real animatronic versus this goofy glitchy sprite. Which, for a character whose design changes every time Scott sneezes, is pretty significant. The final shot of UCN, the thing we're meant to focus and look on, is Golden Freddy in the void. Both games feature large character rosters representing the series' history. And obviously not all of these characters could be real souls or animatronics. Not like there's two separate Williams and babies running around. And it's not like there's 3 copies of Jeremy as in the one Bonnie, running around. Most of these characters are created by the Vengeful Spirit, if not all of them. And if the Vengeful Spirit can create things, that's a property that lines up with the dialogue of FNaF World. And I know I've reused this shot a few times, but seriously, it's so hard to ignore how similar these scenes all are. The Vengeful Spirit can create things, a property that lines up with the Spooky Eyes from FNaF World. They have knowledge of characters in FNaF World and directly reference it. In the game that constantly references FNaF World, the game created by the Vengeful Spirit, with Fredbear being a huge focus in both games. Fredbear, the character that killed the bite victim, and Fredbear will now be the one that promises to help him. It all comes together in Happiest Day. A minigame that exists in a rectangular party room with 4 tables with balloons on each, kids with the masks of their respective characters. The party was for him, and it will be again. And this is where we can see the plot unfold in real time throughout FNaF 3 and the logbook. And as Spooky Eyes, or should I say Cassidy, says, the pieces are in place for him, he just needs to find them. They had Adventure Freddy relieve all the breadcrumbs and help set everything up. The bite victim can't normally see or act on his own, but he can alter tech, he can change things that already exist, and he always has access to his memories. In his weakened, scared state, he needs all the help he can get, but he still needs to be the one to do everything. That's why Cassidy needed to put things in place. Once again, as stated at the start of FNaF World, breadcrumbs have to be left for him. The Happiest Day minigames. This explains why, from his perspective, everything is memories from his final week. The balloon boy with the same color and shirt, the toy Chica on the ground, The Fredbear going off stage, the shadow of Bonnie on the wall, the broken Mangle toy, all things from his memories, things Cassidy was talking about. Cassidy directly asks, what do you remember? And constantly asks things like, are these familiar to you? What are you capable of seeing or doing? If you're a blind spirit, what's the only thing you have? Your memories. I think Scott was trying to point us as, what do you remember? Almost like Cassidy saying, hey, what do I have to work with? What can I use to help you? What do we see unfold in each of the FNAF 3 minigames? A desired normal ending, actually kind of like FNAF World in a sense where it's always trying to lure you away or trick you from your desired goal, that we break and manipulate and change. Cassidy created Adventure Freddy / the player of FNAF World to put the pieces in place for the bite victim. A trail of breadcrumbs for him to find his way, to get to the ending they need and want. He can alter what's already there, and this is important for Happiest Day. He needs to do it because it's required for him to move on. Think about the general concept of unfinished business for spirits. It involves accomplishing something they couldn't achieve before. It typically involves some sort of personal growth or epiphany based on their own death or a goal they had. It could be something as simple as kill the man that killed me or my parents, or it could be something more complicated. Think about what we see in FNAF World. A kid too scared to act who collapses from anything and anything. Even just a man in a costume walking towards him. He's told he needs to be brave, but he can't. He can't do it. He collapses. It's the core reason he was bullied. For the bite victim to be at peace, he needs to face his fears, the animatronics. And by stepping through his fears and changing his own fate, he finds what he needs for closure and resolution. What he never got. And this might sound cheesy, but that's friends. Friends who won't talk down to him, who won't make fun of him for being scared. Everyone gets scared. They've been scared, but they are all kids. Kids who just wanted to have fun at Freddy's at the end of the day. All of them. Even the bite victim had his friends. He considered the plushies his friends. And in a way, we're getting back to that original point. Poetically, the animatronics are his friends. The MCI spirits are those characters, and they are the ones who will help him celebrate his happiest day. Cassidy did the hard work of the weird soul-bending mini-games and all that, creating everything. By the way, the FNAF 3 mini-games existing at all kind of expect a FNAF world. A created space with created characters just for the sake of progressing what Cassidy wants. That's why Cassidy tells him these characters are his friend. That's why Cassidy uses Psychic Friend Fredbear quotes and dialogue. That's a figure he trusted and listened to, and it's also a sort of apology. As I said earlier, Fredbear is the character that killed him. Now Fredbear is helping him, making up for it. It's poetic, it's full circle, and it helps him cross his way to find all the MCI spirits. He helps them too. They're angry and restless and animalistic and just want to hurt Afton, at least for a while. But at the end of the day, at the start of this story, they were just kids who wanted to have a fun time at Freddy's. And clearly, killing William didn't help them. Their spirits aren't freed once he's dead. They are still trapped. What they actually need isn't the death of a serial killer. That isn't going to fix anything or help them, really. What they need is to move on, to relax and accept what happened, what they are, and what they were. In a kind of tragically funny and sad way, they've been practicing for this moment for 30 to 40 years. On stage every day, helping kids celebrate their parties and birthdays. Now, as those characters, they have a chance to help this kid celebrate something he never got, to help him move on, just as he helped them remember what they lost and what they're never going to get back, but what they have to accept they can move past. They just need to move on, and they just need one last friend to help put everything on the table, literally and figuratively. They need one host for the party, a girl who was with the lost spirits from the beginning and brought all of them together to begin with. And with all of that, the pieces are put together. What's in the box? The pieces put together. What did we, as the player, do? We put the pieces in place for him. While I do think there are coincidences in FNAF, I don't think it's a coincidence at all that Scott uses the phrase the pieces when he says, what's in the box? The pieces put together. What did the bite victim not have on his birthday? A mask like every other kid. What happens at the end of Happiest Day? He puts on the mask for his character. What do you do in FNAF World? You put the pieces in place for him. What do you do in FNAF 3? You put all the pieces together. What happens when all of the pieces are together? He puts on the mask. What's in the box? All the pieces together. I think it's very straightforward. How do you put something back together? You pick up all the pieces. And so, with all of the pieces put together, there's only one thing left to do now. The bite victim puts on the mask that he was supposed to wear in his birthday, something the Aftons left forgotten, sitting in a dusty box in the real world. But here on the flip side, or whatever this world is, he gets to put it on, staring at his new friends for the first time. This little boy who once cowered in fear of everything, even just a man in his suit or his brother in a mask, stands up for himself and others. He faces fear, he helps those lost souls accept what must come next. He has the courage not just to face the otherworldly scenarios or the animatronics he once feared, to stand up for himself and to let himself be happy. To let everyone be happy. And they celebrate. They celebrate with something that was robbed from him, something that he never got, just as it was robbed from them. They celebrate a happiest day.
Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, friend.
Now, I want to talk more about Cassidy themselves, especially this sort of Cassidy I'm crafting and explaining in this video. Under this theory, I think they just have to be the one you should not have killed, and that lines up perfectly with their FNaF world connections. Not only have I established the connections between the FNaF world Spooky Eyes and UCN being able to create characters, but there's also the aforementioned Gravestone connection, combined with the consistent emphasis on Golden Freddy and Fredbear, but also specific lines like,
"I am remade, but not by you. By the one you should not have killed. I am given flesh to be your tormentor."
Implying that Nightmare Freddy in UCN was made by the one you should not have killed. Jacko Chica also implies the same in her dialogue.
I am a burning reminder of your misdeeds. Greetings from the fire and from the one you should not have killed.
Mangle and Withered Chica imply they've seen the one you should not have killed.
I have seen him, the one you shouldn't have killed. He's here and always watching, the one you shouldn't have killed.
And if they made those few or have interacted with those few or are the reason they are there, I see no reason the character established in FNaF World to be able to create characters wouldn't be the one creating the characters in UCN. Combined with Molten MCI Altares, with the idea being that the one you should not have killed, in this case Cassidy, following Afton ever since he was spring-locked, it paints a pretty consistent narrative of Cassidy following Afton around to torment them. It's also worth noting that Scott calls this face the one you should not have killed in his Help Wanted Reddit post. And the Vengeful Spirit says I, in all instances talking about the state of UCN and tormenting Afton, except with statements like,
"No matter how many times they burn us."
when they're including things that have happened to Afton, which also further shows they have awareness of various events and other characters, yet their dialogue still sticks to this idea that they are the one in control and perpetuating the torment.
This is how it feels, and you get to experience it over and over and over again, forever. I will never let you leave.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
So if this character speaking is talking about I singular creating this whole UCN torment, I see no reason why they would not be the one you should not have killed, and therefore not be Spooky Eyes, and therefore not be Cassidy. And even though I said I wouldn't talk about it, Andrew from the Stitch Wraith plotline outright says he never had anyone to talk to when asked about it by Jake. Even though he has amnesia, he says this very blatantly and definitively. Like, no, I just didn't have anyone to talk to, and it's even implied that's kind of the reason he's so angry in that story. Which means between everything, I find it very unlikely that UCN is somehow both Cassidy and Andrew in some capacity. As I've said in the Puppet Stuff video, Cassidy has a potentially very defined motive to why they're so powerful and hateful. If they were spring-locked, that would give them a slower, more drawn-out and painful death than anyone other than William. Even Elizabeth was said to be screaming for only a moment by Baby, implying that her death was relatively instant. But we know through William what a spring-lock failure looks like, and we know that it's slow and painful. And if you compare the imagery of William twitching in the back room to the final shot of UCN, it lines up eerily well. This would also explain why they're so hateful and why their suit has so many weird properties. They just have a stronger hatred and connection to that suit. It adds a very sinister karmic notion to Afton's story. Just like he springlocked Cassidy, Cassidy makes it so he is springlocked. It ties back to Fredbear and Spring Bonnie being best friends and co-stars and ultimately ending up as greatest enemies in this story. It also adds continuity to Afton's design for Baby, a mixture of his two greatest successes. A full-blown animatronic, not just a puppet, but with Charlie's likeness in many ways, a white clown face with red makeup and cheeks, but with the horrific crushing and grabbing of a kid in her stomach, something he may have seen in a springlock failure. But by Afton's miscalculations, Elizabeth's death was way faster and therefore likely less painful, and also Elizabeth herself just doesn't hate Afton or want revenge. So while she's very sentient and aware, she isn't uncannily supernatural or nearly as unstoppable as Cassidy. And if my take on puppet stuff is true, this demarks Cassidy as one of the kids not carried in Charlie's arms. Cassidy appears in the last second in spite of Give Gifts, Give Life, erupting through the screen. Cassidy isn't shown when Henry talks about the spirits carried in Charlie's arm. Cassidy is unique, and Cassidy wants revenge. Stuck sitting in that back room day after day, the only other thing there being the Spring Bonnie suit their killer used with some extra crud thrown in there. Unable to move or escape, feeling powerless for who knows how long. A fate where they were twitching in the corner, unable to leave or move, feeling hopeless and powerless. But they do have power, and they'll use that power. They'll kill Afton in a springlock failure, just like what they went through. They have the power to keep him trapped and tormented forever. But above all that, they have the power to free and help all of the spirits, to help them move on. And that is the perfect revenge. Regardless of what you interpret William to be, there's a clear emphasis on his desire to persist and his efforts to understand possession and control it. He definitely was trying to do something with Remnant and the Fun Times. He mainly came to FNaF 6 knowing his victims would be there, to see what they became. William's goal, no matter what, involves those kids and those souls. But what would happen if they were free? He'd have nothing. His body burned beyond use, his mind trapped in an endless cycle of torment, and even if he broke free, then what? He's the shallow, horrible remains of a petty killer, trying to chase after something so far beyond his understanding that he could just barely control, and even then, the creations he made with that little bit of control act out against him. But with all of that gone and burned, no children to torment, no remnant to harvest, no ability to kill more, no ability to create more remnant, no Henry, no Mike, no Elizabeth, no Charlie, no bite victim to bring back, everyone has moved on. At the end of the day, Afton needed those kids. He needed everything that was Freddy's and its tragedies to continue his efforts. And they're all gone. Afton robbed them of everything, and now Cassidy has robbed him of everything. Now he's going to know how that feels. Cassidy achieved that, took everything away from him, trapped to face an endless swarm of reminders of what he did, forced to live with and face the monsters that so many kids, employees, innocent guards, and random people just walking by had to see and live in fear of, torturing him forever, mocking him, humiliating him, the greatest possible punishment. No one left to free him, nothing left to be done once free, and even at the highest level of his resistance, all that's left is one reminder. A simple yellow suit twitching in the back room, fading away.